Ever get that feeling with certain authors where their words just pull you in completely? You forget where you even are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Liz Moore is one of those for me. And I got to say, when I first saw the title, The God of the Woods, it just sparked this like immediate curiosity.
Yeah,
you know?
I get that.
Yeah.
What is it about a title like that?
Right.
What secrets are hiding in those woods?
Exactly. And for anyone listening, what is it for you? What makes you want to hear every twist and turn in a book like this?
I think that title for sure has a certain weight to it, right? There's something primal about it, something almost untouched.
Untouched by the modern world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with Liz Moore, you know, she's fantastic at those intricate character studies, and her settings are always so richly detailed.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're in for a really immersive experience with her. And for someone listening to this, that promise of vivid imagery and slowly revealed mysteries, it's got to be pretty compelling.
For sure. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Let's all journey together into the world of Camp Emerson. It's the summer of 1975. Right from the start, Moore throws us into this mix of characters, each with their own baggage, and it quickly becomes apparent they each have their own hidden lives.
Right.
And almost immediately you sense that the whole, you know, sun-drenched summer camp facade is just that. It's a facade.
Yeah.
There are whispers, strange absences, this feeling that something big is about to happen.
I think what's fascinating here is how Moore builds that sense of unease. It's not jump scares or like overt threats.
No.
It's subtle. It's the shifts in how characters interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's this unspoken anxiety that ripples through the camp.
Yeah.
As a listener, it creates this constant anticipation, this feeling that you're about to discover something huge right alongside the characters.
And for those of you on YouTube who love to just lose yourselves in audiobooks and book discussions, that's what we're doing today. We're going to delve into what makes this story so captivating.
Okay.
We want to highlight those early threads of intrigue, introduce you to these really compelling characters, and give you a taste of the atmosphere that will keep you glued to your headphones. We want you thinking, I need to know what happens next.
Exactly. We're going to illuminate the landscape of the story, the key players who shaped everything, and the fundamental questions that Moore is subtly asking in these early chapters.
Right.
You know, by understanding those basic elements, you'll grasp why The God of the Woods has resonated with so many readers and listeners.
Yeah.
And if this deep dive into the beginning of the story piques your interest, please share your own initial thoughts in the comments. You know,
yes.
Give us if you're enjoying this exploration, and subscribe to the Book Reviews One channel.
Yeah.
For more journeys into captivating fictional worlds.
Okay, so let's step into that summer of 75.
Okay.
We're in the counselor's room with Louise, and Louise is confronting Annabelle about breaking curfew. And it's striking how different these two young women are. Louise seems to carry this weight of responsibility, this awareness of potential consequences that Annabelle, even in her tearful confession, doesn't seem to fully grasp.
And that contrast right away, it throws you into these questions about social class and how different people experience the same environment.
Yeah.
Which is a theme Moore kind of weaves throughout these early chapters.
It is. And Annabelle, you quickly learn, operates within a certain privilege. Her tears almost seem like a performance, rather than a true understanding of the potential repercussions.
A performance of contrition.
Yes. And it's a stark contrast to Louise's underlying anxiety.
Right.
And Louise's internal monologue really underscores this divide. She's very aware that she's an adult with maybe a reputation or even her livelihood at stake. While 17-year-old Annabelle, with her wealthy parents practically on site, probably faces far fewer real consequences.
Totally.
It hints at a more complex backstory for Louise, suggesting experiences that have shaped her strong sense of responsibility.
Moore uses those internal reflections to give Louise's character so much depth from the very beginning.
Yes.
We sense that even small actions, like covering for Annabelle, are weighed down by, a deeper understanding of potential fallout. It makes you curious about Louise herself and what pressures she might be under.
Totally. Then we move to this unsettling scene where Louise enters the camper's room and has to pretend she doesn't know Barbara is missing.
Yeah.
The narration points out the shame Louise feels deceiving these young girls who see her as someone they can trust.
Right.
It's a brief moment, but it says a lot about Louise's moral compass and the fact that Barbara's absence is already forcing her into a compromised position.
That moment of feigned ignorance is so powerful because it shows how the expected order within the camp is disrupted.
Yes.
Counselors are supposed to provide safety and security.
Yeah.
And Louise is immediately put in a position where she has to betray that trust.
Right.
The shame she feels shows her sense of right and wrong, and it signals to you, the listener, that Barbara's disappearance is already causing dishonesty and unease.
Next, we meet a new camper, Tracy. Her arrival is pretty telling. Her father is absent, seemingly more interested in a horse race, featuring a horse named Second Thought. Instead, it's his girlfriend, Donna Romano, who brings Tracy to camp. This detail, coupled with the quick sketch of Tracy's father's shifting careers, from jockey's son to exercise rider to trainer to owner, and then their recent divorce. It paints a picture of family life marked by instability, and maybe a father who is emotionally distant.
And what's significant about Tracy's introduction is the strong sense of her father's presence internally.
Yeah.
Moore describes it as a narrative presence, meaning Tracy constantly hears his imagined voice commenting on her life and her actions.
All right.
This year, being the first since the divorce marks the longest time she's been away from him, it amplifies her yearning for that unconditional love she felt as a child.
Yeah.
When she would follow him everywhere around the horses. This whole backdrop of longing and a kind of fractured family life sets the stage for Tracy's experiences at Camp Emerson.
It does. You get the sense that Tracy is carrying a certain emotional vulnerability. Then the narrative shifts to Alice, and her observations, especially of T.J. Hewitt, the camp director, are pretty sharp. Alice's main judgment seems to be about TJ's physical appearance, lamenting how she has supposedly ruined her looks. It's a harsh and superficial assessment.
It is. And it tells us a lot about Alice's own values and maybe her own insecurities.
Right.
This fixation she has on physical appearance as a measure of a woman's worth is striking. But it doesn't stop there, does it?
No, it doesn't. She turns that same judgment towards her own daughter, Barbara, observing Barbara's weight gain in the kitchen with what seems like genuine disgust.
What's unsettling is how Alice justifies this harshness internally.
It is.
She rationalizes it as a mother's responsibility to be her daughter's first best critic.
Right.
Believing she's preparing Barbara for the harsh judgment she might face in the world.
Yeah.
It echoes the way her own mother treated her.
Yes.
It highlights this potentially damaging cycle of transmitted criticism disguised as care.
It does. This perspective from Alice gives us a crucial but critical insight into the potential pressures and expectations that Barbara might be under at home. While Alice's viewpoint is definitely filtered through her own biases, it provides us with a glimpse into the family dynamics that could be influencing Barbara's behavior and self-image.
Yeah.
Even before she goes missing. It raises questions about how Barbara navigates these expectations from her mother.
Right.
So as these individual characters are introduced, Moore also starts to paint a picture of the setting itself, Camp Emerson. We get a sense of the layout with the central commissary, the communal great hall, and then this somewhat foreboding director's cabin, a place only visited by campers who are in trouble.
Right.
It establishes this contained environment with its own rules and social hierarchy.
The description of the director's cabin as a place of consequence definitely adds to that underlying tension.
Yeah.
It's like a physical manifestation of authority within the world of the summer camp.
It is. And then T.J. Hewitt's entrance is so dramatic. Standing silhouetted against the campfire, she immediately commands absolute silence, a silence that even extends to the usually boisterous male counselors. Tracy's first impression of TJ is so sharply drawn. Her unusual height, her thin frame, and that distinct gravelly voice that carries so much authority, especially coming from a woman who appears pretty young.
Right.
It establishes TJ as a formidable and maybe unconventional figure of leadership at Camp Emerson.
Someone who commands respect.
And maybe even a bit of fear.
Yeah. TJ's presence adds a certain gravitas to the camp's atmosphere. She's not your typical carefree summer camp director.
No.
There's an aura of mystery and a clear sense of control surrounding her that shapes the dynamics and interactions within the camp.
We then see Louise doing her counselor duties, making her nightly rounds to check on the campers. She notices Tracy wide awake in the moonlight. Their eyes meet. And this leads to a quiet, almost tender moment between them on the porch outside the cabin.
Yeah.
Louise, drawing on her experience, subtly offers Tracy an opportunity to talk without being intrusive.
That quiet interaction really highlights Louise's caring nature and her genuine concern for the well-being of the campers. Tracy, in contrast to the more outwardly expressive girls, is depicted as quiet and bookish.
Right.
Someone who observes the world around her more than she actively participates. Louise's gentle observation of this stage of girlhood add a touch of warmth and nostalgia to the narrative.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of how fleeting adolescence is.
But that sense of normalcy is quickly undermined, isn't it? Or brought back to that significant detail of the screen door.
Right.
Louise recognizes its importance. The fact that it could be opened and closed silently at night, a detail that seems innocuous but carries weight. And then TJ directly questions Louise about whether she and Annabelle were in their cabin together the previous night.
This is a pivotal moment because it introduces this element of deliberate deception.
Yeah.
Louise's quick lie, confirming their presence in the cabin, shows she's willing to protect Annabelle potentially at her own risk.
Right.
It also suggests these unspoken alliances and a code of conduct among the counselors.
It does.
The screen door, seemingly a minor detail, now becomes a silent witness, a potential point of access or egress that holds implications for the mystery.
Then Barbara finally shows up in Balsam Cabin, arriving quite late. Louise introduces her to the other girls, and Barbara confidently positions herself right next to Tracy.
Okay.
The description of Barbara is interesting. Not conventionally beautiful, maybe, but possessing a certain allure, a confident and mature stillness in her posture. And almost imperceptibly, Tracy seems to straighten up slightly in Barbara's presence.
Barbara's entrance changes the dynamics within the cabin.
It does.
Her self-assured demeanor and confident physical presence immediately make an impression.
Yeah.
Particularly on the more reserved Tracy.
Right.
It suggests that Barbara is a character who carries a certain inherent confidence. Maybe someone used to being the center of attention. This initial interaction hints at a potential connection, or at least a significant influence that Barbara might have on Tracy.
We then get some background info about the importance of the camp classes and this long-standing tradition called the solo trip, which has now evolved into the survival trip. And importantly, this year, there's a new rule.
Okay.
Counselor chaperones will accompany the small groups.
Interesting.
This seemingly minor detail about counselor supervision feels significant in retrospect, doesn't it, given what's about to happen?
It does.
Yeah.
The shift from a completely solitary experience to small, unsupervised groups and now to supervised groups suggests a growing awareness of potential risks.
Yeah.
And a heightened concern for the camper's safety. Maybe because of past incidents or increased parental anxiety.
Right.
This new rule about chaperones sets the stage for the survival trip and the dynamics within those small supervised groups. It adds another layer of complexity to the events that are coming.
We're introduced to Tracy's survival group, and surprisingly, Barbara Van Laar is in it. They acknowledge each other with a simple nod, but otherwise, Barbara stays quiet, much like their kind of taciturn instructor. Then a striking older boy arrives wearing a shell necklace and harass, making a very noticeable first impression on Tracy, capturing her attention in a way the others haven't.
That boy's arrival introduces a potential element of romance.
It does.
And certainly disrupts Tracy's focus.
Yeah.
His unconventional appearance, even within the context of the camp uniform, suggests a personality that stands out.
Yeah.
And hints at potential connections beyond the immediate group.
Right.
Barbara's continued silence within the group adds another layer of intrigue, especially compared to her confident demeanor back in the cabin.
What happens next is unexpected. Barbara, who projected such self-assurance, makes a point of walking alongside Tracy. Tracy doubts she has anything interesting to offer, Barbara seeing herself as someone with divorced parents and lacking any social cachet.
Yeah.
Yet there's Barbara almost bouncing on her toes, seemingly carefree and unconcerned with social hierarchies right beside her.
This unexpected approach by Barbara challenges Tracy's ideas about social dynamics and the basis for connection.
Yeah.
Barbara's seemingly lighthearted and spontaneous behavior is a stark contrast with Tracy's internal anxieties and insecurities.
Right.
It makes you, the listener, wonder about Barbara's motivations.
Yeah.
Why single out Tracy? What does she see in this quiet, perhaps overlooked new camper?
And then pretty abruptly, Barbara confides in Tracy.
Okay.
She announces that she has a boyfriend and then asks Tracy to keep her nighttime departures from the cabin a secret.
Wow.
Tracy is understandably taken aback and confused by this sudden revelation and request.
Yeah.
But Barbara's tone doesn't allow for any further questions.
Right.
This secretive behavior surrounding a boyfriend and nighttime excursions definitely raises a red flag.
Absolutely. Barbara's confession and the immediate demand for secrecy are crucial plot points that move the story forward.
They are.
It establishes that Barbara is involved in something she wants to hide, and she's pulling Tracy into that secret, maybe unwillingly on Tracy's part. This generates suspicion about Barbara's nighttime activities and, of course, the identity of this mystery boyfriend.
Now we jump to August. It's 7 in the morning, and the unthinkable has happened. Barbara's disappearance has been discovered, TJ's initial reaction is one of palpable concern. And she immediately starts piecing together any potential clues, asking Louise who Barbara might have been close to, specifically mentioning Tracy and their shared tent during the survival trip.
TJ's focus on Tracy as a potential source of information makes sense given their shared recent experience on the survival trip.
Yeah.
The fact that they shared a tent would suggest a certain level of closeness, if not a deep friendship. This marks the transition from a sense of unease to the reality of a missing camper and the beginning of the official search.
TJ gathers all the counselors together, asking if anyone saw anything unusual during the night or if they knew about any relationships Barbara might have formed.
Right.
There's this palpable, unspoken tension in the room, this hope that there's a simple, innocent explanation for Barbara's absence. It's clear that everyone understands how serious this situation is.
That meeting highlights the initial phase of information gathering. It's a crucial step in trying to understand the circumstances surrounding Barbara's disappearance.
Yeah.
The anxiety among the counselors shows the responsibility they feel.
Yeah.
And the potential repercussions for everyone at Camp Emerson if something bad has happened.
TJ then outlines the protocol for the search parties, giving instructions on how to look for clues and what the signal will be if anything is found.
Okay.
But then a new, maybe less informed counselor named Sam asks a seemingly harmless question about Barbara's brother, Bear Van Laar, and the reaction in the room is a shocked silence.
Oh, wow.
Apparently within Camp Emerson, Bear Van Laar's name is like taboo.
Okay.
Definitely not something to be mentioned casually, and especially not in front of TJ, who is believed to have been close to him.
That sudden shocked silence is so telling.
It is.
It flags Bear Van Laar as an important figure in the camp's history. Someone surrounded by a potentially tragic or scandalous past.
Yeah.
The fact that his name causes such a strong reaction and seems off limits, especially with TJ, adds a whole new layer of mystery.
Yeah.
It suggests that Barbara's disappearance might be connected to deeper, more complex relationships and events from the past.
Finally, Moore gives us some context about the Van Laar Preserve and its economic importance to the town of Shattuck. With the closure of the local paper mill, the preserve, and especially Camp Emerson, have become vital sources of jobs and revenue.
Right.
This economic reliance highlights the complex relationship between the town and the wealthy Van Laar family.
Yeah.
It's a mix of dependence and maybe some underlying resentment or a complicated history.
That economic context is important for understanding the bigger implications of Barbara's disappearance. It shows how interconnected Camp Emerson is with the community around it.
Right.
Barbara isn't just a missing camper. She's part of a powerful family whose presence has a big impact on the lives of many in Shattuck.
Absolutely.
This adds a social and economic layer to the events, suggesting that the consequences of her disappearance will reach far beyond the camp.
So as we reach the end of our deep dive into the first chapters of The God of the Woods, we're left with that haunting question posed by the title.
Right.
What hidden forces, what secrets are in Camp Emerson and the woods around it? We've met a compelling cast of characters, each with their own hidden burdens and potential connections to Barbara's disappearance.
Exactly.
Right.
We've seen the initial impact of this event, the subtle deceptions, the critical judgments, and the introduction of figures like Bear Van Laar,
Yes.
whose very name carries so much unspoken history.
It does.
The ideal image of a summer camp in 1975 is fading and revealing a darker undercurrent of unease and the suggestion of more complex and maybe unsettling truths to come.
It makes you think about family, the weight of expectations, and the difficult and sometimes painful search for truth when secrets and unspoken tensions are everywhere. What really happened to Barbara in those woods? And what roles will these intriguing characters play in either hiding or ultimately revealing the answer to that question?
Those are the very questions Liz Moore lays out so well in the beginning of The God of the Woods.
Yeah. Immediately pulling you, the listener, into this web of characters and mysteries.
She does.
We really hope this deep dive into the beginning of the story has sparked your interest and given you a taste of this captivating world that she's created.
And if you're eager to find out what happens next, be sure to share your thoughts and any theories you have in the comments below.
Yes.
And if you like this exploration, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Book Reviews 1 channel for more deep dives into captivating fictional worlds.
Absolutely.
We look forward to continuing these literary journeys with you.